I think there's something really powerful in the ability to say no. I think it strengthens the individual, it strengthens the business, and it allows you to focus on what you do want to do. So, as an example, we won't work with gambling and gaming businesses. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just not something that I feel that we want to be promoting. And therefore, we say no to those kind of businesses that come through the door in a very nice and polite way.
Welcome to How I Grew This, where we dive into the world of digital marketing and connect with leaders in the space about how they're scaling, evolving, and growing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of How I Grew This. I am really excited to introduce Mick Rigby, our wonderful guest today. He's the founder and CEO of Yodel Mobile, a global app growth marketing agency based in London, so you get to enjoy the accent today. Mick's been running Yodel for almost 20 years, helping brands grow through smart mobile marketing, digital strategy, and app growth. They've worked with some huge names, Gymshark, B&Q, NBC Universal, Kuda Bank, just to name a few. And recently, Yodel Mobile was acquired by NP Digital to help take their global growth to the next level. I learned that Mick and Adam actually met through their joint love of a three-piece suit. So really excited to hear a little bit more about how that came to be and hear their fanciness shine through.
Thank you, Amanda. I don't want to talk too much about suits because otherwise Mick and I will drive everyone away who came talking about growth. But long story short, I saw Mick across the room with a three-piece suit on and walked over to talk to him and been fast friends ever since. Welcome, Mick.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you, Amanda. Absolutely. Let's not talk about tailoring, but I'm a big fan of a shirt and tie, so it's actually a rarity to see me in a polo shirt.
I put the jacket on for you.
Yeah, very impressed, actually.
Let's talk about before you started your agency, which you've been running for 20 years, which is probably longer than most of the people who've listened to this entire career. Let's talk about before that. So give us your background, where you grew up, what got you into the agency world, and where you started your professional career.
Yeah, my background is advertising. I'm neurodivergent, so I've got ADHD and I've got dyslexia, and school was a real challenge for me, but I was lucky enough to go to university and study a degree. Part of that degree was marketing and advertising. And as I started getting into that, I suddenly found something that A, I loved, and B, I was actually quite good at. So that set the course for the rest of my career. I love advertising. I love the connection that messages have with individuals. I love how consumers take information on board, assimilate that, and do what they do with that information. It's a fascinating science.
So you started out in advertising. So that was your degree, and then you left school. Did you go immediately into the agency, or did you work for some of the big agencies first?
Yeah, I did. I actually managed to get an internship as soon as I left university with Gillette in Boston in the US. So my first experience of working was actually in the United States. I did a year or so there and then came back to the UK and managed to land my first job in a small advertising agency in a region, and then grew through that, moved to London, worked at some of the big names at the time, both in the media side of things, as well as the advertising side of things, primarily in a planning and strategic capacity. And then on the back of that, I saw that there was a lot of stuff that was going on in those particular worlds I wasn't particularly comfortable with. I guess I had a self-belief that I knew a better way of doing things and set my first business up in 2000 on the back of that. And then that was a communication planning business. So we kind of sat between media and advertising, and probably about 5 or 6 years into that, I saw that mobile was on the horizon, and I launched Yodel Mobile about a month and a half before the iPhone launched.
Wow. Fascinating timing. May I quickly ask, what problem were you trying to solve at the time with Yodel Mobile?
I would love to say that I had a vision, that I knew that this mobile space that a lot of us work in was going to be as big as it was. That wasn't the case. I had a client who, he worked for Match.com. He'd left and then called me a couple of days later and said, look, I'm working on this .wap app in the Nokia environment, and I need somebody that can help promote it. And I couldn't find anybody to help him. So I said, great, I'll give it a go. And on the back of that, I started learning the ecosystem. what it was at the time and quickly understood that there was going to be an opportunity here, an opportunity for somebody that understood the principles of marketing and advertising in a very tech-driven environment. And I guess that's how I put the flag in the ground to go, there's an opportunity here for a business to support these kind of clients, and potentially it's going to get big. That's how it really sort of started in the mobile and the app space.
Just to work to the detail of the timing. So you started the company 5 or 6 years before you got into mobile?
Yeah, so I had another business, it was called Monkey, and we were working with a lot of digital clients and a lot of launch clients that were coming over to the UK. So like the smart car for Daimler Chrysler and the first sort of internet bank. So we were very much on the cusp of innovation and difference. And it was out of that environment that the first client that came to me saying, can you help me with this? I'm building something in .wap. And it was a case of learning on the job. There was no structure, there was no process, there was no frameworks, there wasn't a mobile advertising infrastructure at all. So it was a case of inventing it.
That's an acronym I haven't heard in a long time. Was that Wide Area Protocol?
Yes.
So, Mick, a question I always like to ask someone who starts a business, because having done so, it's daunting to take the first step. So the 6 years before you got into mobile, you said that there's some issues with the traditional media advertising landscape. What was the thing that you told yourself that allowed you to take the step of starting your own business?
I had a belief that was a better way of doing things. I was getting very frustrated in the conventional way the agencies and businesses were actually operating in that comms space was being done because that was the way it was always done. And there were clear challenges out there that just weren't getting resolved. And I think I had a belief in myself that I could potentially do it differently. And that was the driver, genuinely looking at the way it was being done and thinking, no, that's not right. There's smarter ways of doing this. And that gave me the drive to really sort of kick on, set up my first business and then the second business, which is Yodel.
So what decisions did you make early on that set Yodel apart from other agencies?
I think the first and most obvious one was we were the very first app marketing business. It was incredible. I mean, I remember when the App Store launched. It must have been about 8 or 9 months after the iPhone before the App Store came into play. So these were massive step changes at the time that obviously influence the way that digital's communicated now. But it was one of those thunder and lightning moments where, my God, nobody else is doing this. And I'm a great believer in you either have to be a specialist or a generalist. If you're a specialist, focus on one thing that you're very good at doing, or a sector, or a principle, or an activity. If you're a generalist, you have to be pretty good at a number of things. And I think my agency, when we launched it, and we are today, were one of very few businesses that do what we do to the extent that we do it end-to-end mobile and app marketing, primarily because it's very difficult to have that level of expertise within the key areas of CRM, user acquisition, app store optimization, mobile creativity under one roof. And that's what we've always done. So often we would get a client coming to us saying, could you also buy digital advertising for us? Or could you also do SEO? And I guess we could, but we'd never be as good doing that as we are in the mobile and the app space. So sticking to one thing that we were very good at and continue to be good at has been an absolute principle for us, and it's benefited us all the way through.
So if someone asks you to do something you're not an expert at, do you regularly and comfortably say no?
Yeah.
What are some examples of things that you won't? Someone says, look, you're great, I love it, come do my UA, or something you're not an expert at.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something really powerful in the ability to say no. I think it strengthens the individual, it strengthens the business, and it allows you to focus on what you do want to do. So as an example, we won't work with gambling and gaming businesses. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not something that I feel that we want to be promoting. And therefore, we say no to those kind of businesses that come through the door in a very nice and polite way. Saying no to buying digital, whereas we're buying mobile, for instance. They're the kind of areas that we will double down with. I think also it empowers the people beyond myself in the business. I think they feel they're in a business that genuinely wants to do the right thing and won't necessarily chase the money. They're chasing the right kind of clients and doing it in the right kind of way. And I think it builds up a strength and trust with those individuals that you're working with to follow you into the spaces, the places, the challenges that you want to go and work with the clients that we want to bring on board.
Very authentic way to approach things.
It is, but it's also a place of luxury to say no. Like, you have to be a healthy business. You have to have the revenue coming in. So how do you balance that, not needing to chase the money? How are you getting clients generally?
I'll answer the first question initially. And that is one of the strengths I think about our business, and it can apply to a lot of businesses, is just growing at the right kind of speed. So yes, those first few years, those formative years are the biggest challenge because you've got to make sure you've got the cash flow. You've got to make sure that you can pay your bills, you pay your suppliers, and you pay your staff before you pay you. So I suppose if you're true to your principles, then, you make sure that you're doing the right thing by everybody else and you're still managing to tick over, because if you don't have a business after 2 years, you've failed and you've stuck to your principles. But what's the point of that? So those challenging first few years are by far the most difficult that any business that wants to follow the process that I followed, which is growing slowly. You grow slowly because that allows you not to have to do the things that you don't necessarily want to do. It allows you to deliver, I think, the best quality of service that you want to provide in the areas you want to provide and work with those clients you want to work with. So not having the dollar signs in your eyes from day one, just making sure that you are able to grow, not make a loss. And then when you get to certain key points of your growth, you're able then to expand, bring more people in. I think one of the principles we've been very good at is retaining people. And because we're in a specialist area, the skill sets that our guys have got and have grown through the business and learned are valuable, very valuable, but they're very specialist. Now, what we don't want to do is get to a position where somebody's been with us 4, 5, 6 years, they're arguably in a director position and they leave. So having the right kind of principles and the values, I think, have helped retain an awful lot of the right kind of people within our business. And what that's allowed us to do is pass down those skill sets from somebody that started as a junior and then became a manager and a director. That director's now training managers who are now training juniors. And those skills are getting passed on. So we're very good at keeping that experience in-house. And that's allowed us to grow at the pace that we want to go, but also retain the kind of skills and specialisms that we as a business absolutely value and our clients value.
So that's even a more luxurious position to be in, especially as an agency, someone who can afford to retain the talent and the loyalty of their high earning income folks, while managing the cash flow of incoming clients. Like an agency, you lose your top client, like all of a sudden you can't make payroll. So you didn't take money, right? This was all bootstrapped?
Yeah, it was all bootstrapped. How
do you approach the planning, the economic planning of, I'm an agency, I have this portfolio of clients. Every month I got to make payroll or else these folks are leaving. How do you plan for that?
I mean, for us, my business partner is an accountant. He's from a finance background. And that's been invaluable in so many ways because it's allowed us to ensure that we've built up profitability very quickly. We had the cash flow. We had money in the bank. We didn't have to take loans. So there was that element of security. On the flip side of that, though, you've got the overcautious nature of any finance person out there. We've all worked with them. We all know what they're like. So there's often a 2-step forward, 1-step back process in terms of growth. And what I mean by that is getting to that position where we can actually justify bringing more resource in-house, buying more tooling, whatever it is, rather than bringing it in-house first and then finding the client to do it. So you've got to grow at the speed that the business is able to grow at without taking too much risk. Now, we've taken a lot of risk, but it's not so much financial risk. It's been risk in terms of people, clients, positioning of what we do, those kind of areas. And that's the risk. I mean, I thrive on that. It's the challenge. I love that. But making sure that we were never going to be in a position that we didn't have enough money in the bank to pay, first and foremostly, the teams that are working for us.
Well, I was just going to ask for an example of one of those risks that you took, whether it's a client success story or a positioning story that actually paid off, or in the other direction if that's more top of mind.
I guess one of the real hot topics in mobile and app marketing at the moment is ASO, App Store Optimization. And what we did, as soon as the principles for ASO were kind of floated, probably about 10, 12 years ago, I guess in layman's terms, it's SEO for the App Store. Trying to define those principles ourselves, taking on those learnings ourselves, and spending so much time understanding it, learning when nobody else was doing, and probably one or two people that were maybe 20% not working on clients, 80% learning, so that
when it hit, you were ready.
we were ready to go. ASO is a good example of that, but we've done that along the way. So for instance, when COVID hit, and everything shut down, a ton of our clients just didn't have any budget or weren't willing to continue advertising. We retained all of our staff. And what we did over that period is we spent a ton of time looking at what we as a business do, the services we provide, trying to future predict what was going to come out of COVID, and then make sure that when the market opened up again, we were in the best of shape with a completely new service offering. When I say completely new, doing the same kind of things, but doing them better or doing more of them. Looking at the market as a whole and then coming out of the traps as soon as we were all going out and about and the market had opened up again. And that put us in a really strong position coming out of 2020. And every year since, there's been double-digit growth in the business. But a lot of that was down to, right, we're going to retain this. We've got enough money in the bank. I'm not going to pay myself for X amount of months. Let's come out of this stronger than we went in. And we took that, which was a challenge for everybody, as an opportunity.
That sounds inspiring, but having lived through it, I know there's a lot of stress that you kind of glossed over. Not paying yourself for X months. You just kind of threw that out there, but like, you're not paying yourself for X months. Like, who knows when you can turn that back on? You've done this for 20 years now. You've run your own agency for 20 years. You kind of mentioned this about growing with sobriety. How do you have the staying power to do it for 20 years? Like, what's your secret to make sure that you're still showing up to calls, smiling and loving this after 20 years?
You have to smile. I wanted to create an environment, an agency, a business that I could go into every day. You know, when we all used to go back to the office every day.
Barely remember it.
Those good old days, yeah. But go into an environment where people in general were having a good time, were enjoying themselves, and conversely working damn hard to deliver, because that was an environment they really enjoyed being in, and it was challenging. So for me, going into that environment and seeing people that were in a positive frame of mind reflects back on me. It gives me the impetus and the emotional stimulation to be committed to that kind of environment. So to your point, Adam, COVID wasn't the only time that I didn't pay myself. There have been ups and downs. There have been a lot more downs in the first few years than there were ups. And you have to go through. And I think you have to have a ridiculous self-belief in what you're doing and your ability to deliver on it.
Delusion is probably a better word.
A healthy delusion.
A healthy delusion. And maybe it's misplaced. And I'm touching wood as I say this. We've always come out on top. But there have been super tough times. And if we weren't resilient and we weren't committed, then I'd be sitting here saying, oh no, we never came out on top. So that belief is really important, really important.
So speaking of coming out on top, you were just acquired. Congratulations. But tell us what's going through your mind, and tell us a little bit about the deal and your reflections on it. How long ago was it that it finalized?
It was April of this year that we were acquired by Neil Patel Digital, MPD. Why did we open our doors? So I've got to a point with the business. We got so many good people that have been committed to the business. I mean, all the board have been here for 10 years plus. And you look at the next level underneath that, and we've got people 5, 6, 7 years, and so on. How far can you grow a business yourself We're headquartered in London. We work globally, and most of our business is actually in the US. But we're creating channels of growth, not just for the business and our clients, but for everybody that's within the business. So there has to be a pathway. There has to be, I'm going to go to here, and then I'm going to go to here and going to here. With people that have been with me for 10 years or so, where are they going to go in an environment which is built on steady and sustained growth? As I say, good growth every year. You have to then say, right, we need to step up. So we were looking for a partner that had the same kind of values as us, that had a very large visibility outside of the UK, primarily in the US, but on a global scale. We were looking for a partner that understood the value of the uniqueness of the service we provide and saw the kernel of, I guess, excellence that sits at the heart of our business. Not me, the other people that work in the business.
Don't sell yourself short.
It's probably a British thing, but find that kernel, water it and grow it. So we decided probably 3 or 4 years ago that there would be a time very soon that we were going to go and become part of a bigger entity that would support and focus on the growth that we wanted. So we talked to a lot of businesses, a lot came to us, a lot we approached, but MP right from the outset sat within that golden area of, do you know what? We can imagine ourselves being part of this. These guys are great. And it came to pass. It's never easy going through that process. Lots of late nights, lots of due diligence, lots of, have you got that piece of paper from 6 years ago that relates to that? Or like, I don't know. But since completion and the last sort of 9 months now, it's been great. I'm still as excited now as I was on day one of the acquisition. And I think that says a lot for the business that bought us, MPD.
I like the way that you presented that, because if I were to take that and summarize it into one sentence, I'd say my folks were getting to a point where they're hitting a glass ceiling. So I decided I needed to break the glass ceiling below me so they could all move up, which is, that's a lesson to everyone who's looking for a growth opportunity, is find a boss who will destroy the glass ceiling below them.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think you've succinctly put that, Adam. There's only so far you can go without hitting that wall. And the guys, they've put a lot of trust in me over the years. I've put a lot of trust in them. And that trust has manifest now by giving, hopefully, more opportunity and more growth space for those individuals to grow into, wherever it is within Yodel or potentially even the group. But I think it's important to do that.
I love that you're telling a story about how important it was to make sure it was the right organization to become a part of. And it sounds like you found one where you're able to maintain your identity and values. So can you tell me a little bit about what changed by joining? Like, do you think about growth any differently? Are there any approaches that they take that have kind of seeded into how you approach things?
I think as a 30-strong business who have always kind of been the little guy, but the little guy punching above their weight, you're always kind of looking in to see what can we do without taking advice, because that advice isn't necessarily out there unless you have friends, former colleagues that are working in other organizations that you can pick the brains off. You've not got all of that experience that you can tap into. By being part of MP, we now have a wealth of brilliant people from Brazil through to California, through to China, who we can basically pick the phone up to and ask advice of, or get direction from, or look at how they resolve those challenges that everybody faces. And that's been brilliant. And I love working with people from different cultures and different backgrounds from all over the world. I think there's a value in diversity, whether that's in your business, and we are a very diverse business. I think it gives you different insights. It gives you different ways of thinking of things, and ultimately allows you to be innovative. And that's what we're able to sort of tap into in the wider group.
So looking at the future, what's going to change for your organization specifically as it relates to the big elephant in the room for advertising and for marketing, which is AI? How are you preparing? You weren't going to escape this podcast without talking about AI. Sorry.
No, listen, it's here. It's not going to go away. It's going to help with so many areas of data, heavy lifting, insights. It's inevitable. And we're already using it in so many ways that has had a positive impact on the business. However, My belief is that AI, the robots, there is so much that they're good at, but they are, and they will continue to lack the human element. I think the relationship, the understanding the nuances, whether that be the nuances of a conversation like this and the body language and the nod and the shake of the head, they're not going to understand the principles of relationship building from an empathetic and an understanding nature, because it's all about fact. It's not about feeling. I don't think that strategic thinking, that pure gut feeling and insight that comes from all of us, from us living humanity, it's never going to be able to, when I say never, certainly in the next 5-10 years, it's not going to be able to bring that to bear. So for me, I believe, and this is an area that we're starting to build out again in Yodel, is we're looking now at building those kind of skill sets into, and forgive me, the younger generation, the 20 to 30-year-olds that potentially haven't really experienced that one-to-one meeting scenario, haven't had those going out for dinner with a client kind of experience, and really understanding what makes the client tick, and therefore what is the best way of presenting strategic recommendations to that particular individual. Those kind of skills now, I think, are going to be absolutely essential in service-driven industries for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So making sure that our guys, our teams have those kind of skills is absolutely paramount, because if they do have those skills, there's a value, whether they stay at Yodel or go to another business. They will be invaluable. They'll be highly valued, and they will be paid rightly for the skills that they've got. So that's kind of the next generation of where we're going to go as a business. The machines will be able to do the heavy lifting, learn how to get the most out of that, but bring that information in, and the data and the insight into the human environment, to allow the account directors, the account managers and so on to be able to use that to provide the best service that we can provide to our clients.
You know what's telling about your answer is that I asked you about the strategy of the business. You said basically when the robots take over, we're going to double down on being more human, because that's going to be more valuable for our employees in the future.
Our differentiation and for everyone. Yeah.
Well, yes, but his point was our people are going to be more valuable as people wherever they go. So he wasn't even talking about the business. He was talking about how does he make his employees more valuable for their lives.
Telling of a leader that has shined through this whole experience of this conversation.
That makes my heart sing. If you're doing the right thing, if you have an empathetic view on life, if you bring people through, and if you concentrate on them and what they can do and their own abilities, support them if they want support, manage their ambition to deliver their ambition, you're doing the right thing. And we're a good example of a very solid, profitable, growing business that I believe has done it the right way. And when all of this ends and I'm shuffled off out of the advertising world, hopefully in another 15, 20 years, there will be a lot of people that hopefully have benefited from the way that I've run my business. But it's not the way that I've done it. They've done it. I've just given an environment for them to be able to do it the right way. And it will hopefully have benefited them.
When you look back on the journey, what are you most proud of?
Still being here at this time, through all the tough times. And I'd say still following the right principles, the values, but also just working with just some amazing people. Whether that's the clients who are launching innovative new businesses that nobody's ever seen in the app space, entrepreneurs that their brains just go like that in a completely different way to the way that a lot of other people do, and just seeing the way that the business has grown. And I guess going right back to the day where I thought there was going to be something here in the mobile and app space, and clearly there is.
And there is.
And I'm still part of it, which is a joy.
So is it fair to say what's keeping you motivated and curious is you found something you were passionate about, and then bringing in people that you were able to share that with and help grow them in that path as well?
Amanda, absolutely. I mean, it just amazes me. Just working with people, brilliant people, whether that's in our organization, in the wider MPD, or clients, or you guys, but just having those conversations, listening to what other people have got to say, their views on why and how they've done things. assimilating that. Oh, that's great. No, I don't agree with that. But how exciting is that? How wonderful is it to work in an industry which for us is ever changing? It's growing. It's got a lot of life in it yet. And to be a small cog in this exciting infrastructure and business environment we all work in, why would you not get to the end of the day after all the stress and strain and open that beer and smile? Because it's a great place to be.
Admirable.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mick. I really enjoyed this conversation and hearing your approach to leadership and to growth in a very healthy and modest way. And yeah, really glad to have you on. Appreciate it. Any last words for our guests?
I would just say, firstly, to you guys, thank you so much for the opportunity. As you probably saw, I do like to talk. So you've given me the space to talk. So thank you for that. And I would just say to anybody listening here, the power of no is so, so important. Try it.
I like that. Thank you, Mick. Appreciate your time.
Say no sometime tomorrow, everyone.
Say more often.
All right. Have a great one. Thanks.
Thanks, Mick.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, please leave a review wherever you listen to this and share with someone trying to grow their career or their business. Until next time, keep growing.